So even though I am a pescatarian and I don't like meat outside of fish, the whole concept of taco sausage is pretty fascinating to me. Hi guys, my name is Maria Park and this is Approach to Nerd. And in this episode, we are doing our spoiler review for the Netflix movie, The Half of It. If you have not seen my non-spoiler review, I will link it down below. But now I get to talk about all the stuff I wasn't able to talk about in my non-spoiler review. As I said before in my previous video, I am a big fan of Alice Wu. She did a movie called Saving Face, which is a queer movie about a Chinese American surgeon who is basically not out to her mother or family because they're traditional, but she falls in love with another Chinese American who she went to school with, and I think church with when she was younger, who's a dancer, I believe, if I remember it correctly, and who is out to her family. So it causes a bunch of stuff in their relationship, should I say. This movie with Aster and Ellie is it's almost like a companion, series to Saving Face. As a matter of fact, I think I read that these are supposed to be set in the same universe. They're not a direct sequel or prequel, but I'm looking at it as another set of circumstances that are slightly similar to the original movie that came out, I believe it was in 2004. I do love that Alice Wu writes all of her female characters, especially when they're non-straight, as highly intelligent, because she herself is highly intelligent. She worked for Microsoft. She was an engineer. So, I mean, of course, all of her characters are pretty smart. So I do like that. But let's kind of talk about the movie itself. So the movie follows Ellie Chu, who a lot of the bullies, and for some odd reason, I don't even know why. My assumption is she's probably the only Chinese girl in the whole school, but they call her Chu Chu, and they kind of bully her a little bit, which is kind of weird because she's also an introvert and invisible. The only notoriety she has is that she's running like an underground paper writing business where she writes papers for people's classes. The school is extremely tiny. And the teacher, one of her favorite teachers, knows she's doing this shady business and actually is encouraging it because she doesn't want to read any of the fellow students' papers. So that was really interesting that she's just not turning her in for plagiarism. She's letting it go. But yeah, so Ellie is pretty much invisible, and she meets a guy named Paul Munsky, who is on the football team, and he's kind of like the runt of the group. He's not the fastest runner. He's not the most valuable player. So like the evolution of their friendship also turns into the evolution of their personalities and honestly their skill sets, especially in terms of him. Paul is not good with words. He's not good vocally or on paper, which is why he needs Ellie's help to begin with. He's in love with this girl named Aster Flores in school, and he doesn't know how to talk to her without sounding like an idiot. And he knows that Ellie has this underground paper writing business. She's very good with words. She's extremely smart. So, of course, that's why he initially goes to her. He doesn't realize that Ellie has also been checking, Aster out, like when they're in the music room and you see, we first see Aster singing a song and Ellie's like mesmerized by her. So we already know going in, there's a slight love triangle. But what I loved about this movie was it was not in the forefront. Like it was literally these two characters, Ellie and Paul, becoming close and becoming friends. And I really love that about it. I love that because of his friendship with Ellie, Paul has become a lot more confident. When they would talk, he would jog next to her bike. And throughout the movie, we saw his speed increasing, where he went from like the last person running during their football training, jogging, to like number one. It got to the point where it escalated, where he was the only player, I think they said in 15 years, to score on the board for a touchdown during a game, which is pretty sad, actually. I don't know what school they're playing, but that's very sad. But it's just like an evolution of that friendship. And then Ellie actually opens up more. She has somebody else she can confide in because she's lived a life. It was just her and her father, and her father doesn't speak a lot of English. He's an engineer, but he couldn't get a job in his field because of his poor English skills. So he basically, after her mother died, he got depressed and shut down. He didn't try anymore. So him becoming the station manager of this train station, where they were currently living, meant nothing because she was basically doing his job every day. And she went from that to actually having like goals, like wanting to go to college out of state. She performed live on stage a song that she wrote. And all this was by, Paul's encouragement. It's so interesting because in this movie, we really start to see the struggles that all of these characters have that have nothing to do with each other. Like, Paul's family, they are butchers. And he came up with this idea to have like taco sausage, which it's his own original invention. But his mother is still using his grandmother's recipes because she doesn't want to let the mother go. And so Paul is struggling to find acceptance in his extremely loud family who really don't value his opinions. There's a scene in the church where basically his mother thought that Paul was gay because he had Googled, how do you know you're gay? And she's like, if you're gay, I still love you. And he's like, Mom, I'm not gay. But then he said, but I do want to change the sausage recipe. And she's like, oh my God. So she was freaked out more about the sausage and the meat changing than she was about her son being gay, which I thought was really interesting. Nobody technically has a coming out moment. It just kind of happens. And that's basically when later in the film, when Aster figures out that it's actually Ellie writing the letters to her or texting to her, and not, Paul, that she was like, that was her outed moment, but she really wasn't outed to anybody else. So nobody in the school knew that she was a lesbian. If she's a lesbian, I know she's queer. I know she's into Aster and she's not into Paul. But I mean, there wasn't a big coming out traumatizing moment in this film. I think the worst we got was when Paul realized that Ellie, who he actually was having confusing feelings for, was into Aster, and he makes a comment saying, this is wrong, it's a sin, you're going to hell. And that moment is something that a lot of queer people hear. But in that, to me, it just showed Paul's ignorance because Paul has never left their town of Squamish. Squamish is like all he knows. And I love the fact that he took the initiative in this film to Google it, to actually find acceptance, which is something a lot of educated people try to do. A lot of intelligent people, open-minded people try to do. And unfortunately, in our world right now, in our climate, that's not something that always happens. So I love that this guy who knows nothing else of the outside world came to the conclusion that love is love by himself. It wasn't beaten over our heads. It just happened. And I thought that was really organic, and I really love that. So I love everybody kind of evolved, even Aster a little bit. Aster's from a very religious family. Her father is the pastor of their church that Ellie plays the organ for on Sundays. And he's very controlling of his daughter. He's extremely strict. She has to button down her shirts. He's just so strict. So even when Aster admits in the end of this movie to Ellie that, deep down, I always knew it was you, basically, but she's basically not in a place she can do anything about it because of how she was raised, how religious her family is, and yada, yada, yada. And she plans to go to art school, and in a couple of years, she'll have found herself. Aster is lost in this movie. Like, everybody in this movie is struggling with something. But her finding that strength to just venture out in that kind of like claustrophobic family is really interesting to me. So all three of our main characters have really hard times, with their families. Ellie's trying to get her father to live again after the mother died and let go, because he even says to Paul that he has problems seeing his daughter change. He doesn't want her to change. He doesn't want things to change. He wants her to stay just like the way things are, because he already lost his wife, and I think he's just terrified of being alone. But he basically finds acceptance, and he puts on his uniform and lets her go off to school. I don't know I know Paul is basically trying to push the taco sausage stuff with other vendors. I just don't know how that's going to play out with his family, because his family, they're pretty big, they're pretty loud. So I don't know. I don't know how that's going to go down, but I love that he's trying. Like, even with and Ellie writing letters off for him to try and get people's attention to his taco sausage idea was pretty cool. And how cool is that, taco sausage? That's not something you think about, but it's actually pretty cool. I don't know. My daughter and my spouse are meat eaters. I might have to try and figure out how to make that for them and see how it works out, because in theory it sounds amazing. And then, it's so much evolution. The one character in this entire movie who has no character growth whatsoever is Trip. And that is Aster's very popular, very full of himself boyfriend. He doesn't do anything that's really nasty to people. He's not a butthole to people. He just makes assumptions of how grandeur he is. Like, to the point where he even thought that Ellie had a thing for him. He thinks everyone's in love with him. He thinks he's God's gift to the universe. And he's funny to me. He actually is a comic relief character in my mind. If I'm going to really have anything negative to say, is pretty much the three boys. I mean, it's 3 or 4 boy bullies. The ones that say Ellie Choo Choo when they drive off in the truck. And they sabotage her piano before the talent show. I don't really know why they do that. Like, there's never really an indication of why, other than them being either racist or just buttholes, honestly, because there's no real backstory as to why they don't like her. So yeah, that was a little bit strange. But outside of that, I think Alice Wu did a really, really good job with this movie. I mean, we really saw a girl who went from being invisible to actually being visible and finding a voice. We saw a boy who went from not really being the most outspoken and well-spoken individual to actually finding his voice. And then we see a girl who's separating from the concept of what her family thinks she should be to what she believes she should be. So I really would love a sequel to this. I really would love to see if Ellie and Aster get together in the next movie, because the way they left it, where Ellie kisses Aster and says, "I'll see you in a couple of years," because Aster said that she was going to find herself in the next few years. Just you wait, next couple of years. I would love to see in 2 years, if they had like a sequel, to see exactly how that would all play out. I would love to see where all of them would be. But the one thing that I really took away from this movie, other than it was really good queer representation, is that is a very good, organic, like natural forming, realistic friendship that was formed between Ellie and Paul. And I think that was awesome. So very, very good movie. I suggest you check it out if you have Netflix. It has been on since Friday, I think. And it's a pretty good ride. I love Alice Wu. Anything she really comes up with, I think I'll probably love, because again, I love Saving Face. I love her writing style. I think she really knows how to portray people in a realistic, non-fairy tale manner. So very, very good writer. So check out this movie. I would love to know what you thought about it. Please leave me a comment below and let me know. And if you'd like to sign up for Jury Duty, hit the subscribe button. If you'd like to know who's next on the Nerd Ballot, hit the notification bell. Until next time, I can't wait for you to approach the nerd. Bye, guys. Thank you for watching my video. I really appreciate it. But hey, the party doesn't have to stop now. Click on one of these videos and keep it going.